Good evening. I'm Brooke Goldstein, and welcome to the premiere episode of Outspoken. My vision for the show is to present an unfiltered take on some of the most pressing issues facing the Jewish community and the West at large. Each week, a topic will be tackled without the constraints of political correctness. We're going to have guests that have distinct perspectives that aren't here just to rehash the same old talking points and preach to the choir. I'll speak to you frankly, and I'll speak frankly with my invitees and ask the difficult and sometimes awkward questions necessary to get to the bottom of things. We're going to get real here in this space. Outspoken is a platform where facts matter, not feelings. So tonight, we're going to talk about what everybody seems to be talking about, the campus space, but from a slightly different perspective, because I'm angry. In fact, I'm really angry about what's going on. The rampant civil rights violations against Jewish students, the free speech violations, the outright harassment at federally funded schools. Jewish students are afraid to wear their skull caps, their Stars of David on American campuses. They take circuitous routes to class to avoid harassment. They choose not to take certain classes at all because they'll be targeted by professors for being Zionists. And it gets worse. Jewish students are subjected to physical threats and assaults on campus. Yes, you heard me right. Jewish students are getting beaten up on campus in the United States of America. Daniel Visal, a student at Temple University of all places, was punched in the face by an associate of Students for Justice in Palestine. At San Francisco State University, a student posted a picture of himself on Facebook with a knife, calling for the murder of Jews. And tonight, you're going to hear about how a female student at NYU was just recently assaulted. What is this? 1938? Enough is enough. And yet me declaring so on TV isn't enough either. I'm not going to solve the problem by ranting. The millions of dollars that we're pouring into pro-Israel advocacy groups isn't moving the needle forward. The opposite. Things are getting worse. Every year we see an uptick in campus anti-Semitism. How is this still happening? As a grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and I'm afraid. And you should be too, not just for Jews, but for America. There's a reason why the campus is being used as a strategic battleground to indoctrinate the next generation into radical hatred. The same reason that Arab dictatorships are pouring their dollars into Middle Eastern studies departments, because these are the future leaders of America. These are the people who are going to be shaping our domestic and foreign policies, who are going to be running for office and dictating the platform of our political parties. Everybody's talking about the campus problem, but they're giving us the politically correct version of the debate. They're selling us a problem that can be solved with more funding, with more of the same pro-Israel advocacy. But I dare say, we are on a trajectory towards failure. Why? For two reasons. Number one, we are not aggressive enough. Could you imagine if a black student was beaten up at UCLA or at NYU? The African American community would be vocally livid, and rightfully so. They would be staging massive protests. Al Sharpton would be on every television news network from CNN to MSNBC screaming bloody murder. School administrators would be bending over backwards to create safe spaces and enacting policies to punish the perpetrators of this racist hatred. But they don't give Jews the same treatment, the same respect, because we don't demand it. Not only do we not demand it, but we discourage those in our community who do. Now, some of you may know that I run a litigation fund called the Lawfare Project. We finance some of the most groundbreaking lawsuits on behalf of the Jewish people around the world, setting precedents that change the status quo, suing schools that have a long history of verbally appeasing the Jewish community while turning around and unlawfully acting on their biases. I'll never forget the time I was accused of being too aggressive. They said I was too insistent on taking people to court when they flagrantly flout the law and trample on the rights of Jewish citizens. Too proactive in enforcing the civil rights of the Jewish community. Now, does that make any sense? They said, "Shah, still. We wrote a letter. We're working behind the scenes. Don't upset the administration while we spend the next 10 years negotiating piecemeal with them on your client's behalf." As if that kind of quiet advocacy is really effective. Why are we so ashamed to scream at the top of our lungs that we deserve equal protection under the law, and if we don't get it, then we will fight for our rights like every other oppressed minority is entitled to do so? The second reason we're handicapped is because we're not using our collective efforts effectively. And I know you've heard this before, but listen carefully. The defensive position does not work. All the pro-Israel parades and videos and pamphlets talking about how Israel is a democracy, how we have Arab Knesset members, how we have the largest gay pride parade in the Middle East. It isn't enough. It's not sufficient to say no. Please believe us. We're not the monsters they paint us to be. We must turn the tables. We must give those students who are thirsty for human rights advocacy a real cause to march against. That is the gender, race, and religious apartheid happening in every single Muslim majority country in the world. They want a cause to protest? How about female genital mutilation? How about the enslavement of hundreds of thousands of Africans in Islamic dictatorships? How about the recruitment of innocent Muslim children towards suicidal, homicidal violence? But you can't talk about that, because then you're an Islamophobe. Well, my friends, if raising awareness about human rights violations against innocent women and children is anti-Muslim, what then is pro-Muslim? How on earth are we supposed to engage in intersectionality and build our bridges with other targeted minorities if we don't have the courage to speak out against those who are the oppressors? How is it that every pro-Israel group does not have it written as an essential element of their 501c3 mission statement to advocate for similarly situated minorities? This isn't deflection, it's genuine activism. I'm so frustrated with our communal disabilities.